Yes, so I hope the screen is visible to everyone. So basically, this will be the design which we're taking as a reference and which we will be recreating on Infurnia today. So as of now, we will be focusing on the front facade of this house and how we can complete this side as well. So as you may notice, as opposed to interior spaces, there are a lot of aspects that you need to consider while creating the entire house or rather the exterior facade. So this includes things like creating different levels. As you can see that this has two stories, a two-story house. So creating floor plans at different levels is one thing. Then also you can see that there are different facade elements that I have added here. So we have some louvers, some perforations, and we also have a jari that I've placed here, as well as some louvers and other kinds of pergolas. In addition to this, we also have landscaping. So setting the background settings is quite important, especially when we are running renders for the design. So we can actually enhance the experience by creating different landscapes and accessing different such objects from Infurnia's catalog. And also we can create an external sky setting by choosing our own pattern. So today I'll just demonstrate how we can recreate this entire building front facade from scratch. So in this case, so I'll just start from scratch. So of course, the first thing that we need to do is we need to start a new design. So you can do that. We click start new design as we do with every project. And in this case, we have some templates already, but I will select a blank one for now. So now this is the interface that will be faced whenever we start a new design. So now in this case, what we'll be doing is we'll be first creating the bare structure of this house. We'll be doing the outer shell for now because we're not focusing on the interiors. And on top of that, we will then be adding the finer details like the facade elements, etc. And then finally, we'll be putting the finishing touches by doing the landscaping and the light settings. So first we must start with creating the walls, etc. So we can either do this from scratch or we can use a plan as a reference. Now in my case, I have a plan already ready, an image plan. So how we import this plan is we need to make sure that we are on the ground floor settings. We need to ensure that we're on the floor level and then go to global preferences and settings and then select the floor plan. We need to select the floor settings. So now we're in ground floor and we can see that the bottom level is 0, which we want, and the top level is 3000. This you can change at any point of time while you are designing this. So let's say I'm just making this 300 here because I wanted to start 300 mm above the ground. Now to import our plan, you actually select something called tracing background. And you can either choose between an image file or you can choose between a DWG file here. So I select image here. Then I click on upload/change image. And now this is a plan that I have saved for this particular purpose. So I will just select this plan and select open. So now you can see this plan has already been imported. So we have the ground floor plan here and we have the first floor plan here, but we'll be creating only the ground floor layout for the ground floor. So for that, we need to first make sure that this image is to scale. So I use the measuring tool, and I click on the measuring tool in the toolbar, and I just check whether this is proportionate. So this is not proportionate. So in this case, we have to scale this drawing. How we do that is we go to tracing background. We make sure that we are on image, and then we select set background scale. Then we need to choose a reference. So for example, let's say that we want this opening to be 1200, or we want this wall to be 300. We can choose any reference. So I just click on this point first, and then I click on this second point, which I'm choosing as a reference length. Now they will ask you to specify desired the desired length of what I've just done. So I will type in, let's say 1200, and then I'll select submit. Now when we use the measuring tool again, we can see that this is of the desired width. So in the case of an image plan, the measurement will not be that exact. You will have more luck with a DWG file, for example, but we will use this for now. So now what we must do is we have to create the walls. Now, since we are focusing on the exterior, we'll be creating the external shell. So when I select walls in this toolbar, and I just ensure that the height is what I want. So I will just type in 3000. This you can set in advance, and you can set the custom value, or you can choose from these composite values here. I'll choose custom value. Let's say I want a 300 thick wall. I will just make the overall outer shell. So as you can see, I'm sometimes the wall does not align. So you can always press the space bar if you want to toggle between the center lines while creating this. So in this manner, I'll actually create the entire outer shell of this wall, the shell of this building. So you may also notice that once you're drawing these particular walls and the rooms are forming on their own, you are no longer able to see you'll not be able to see this any longer. So how to make this particular image showing above, to make this superimposed on the drawing, I will just have to go to the floor settings and select the tracing background once more, and then click on show on top. Now you can see this has been superimposed. You can change the opacity here. Yes. So now, so this is how you can superimpose a drawing, your drawing on top of the walls you've just created, the slab, everything. And now you can just go ahead and place your doors and windows, etc. So in 3D, when you look, the shell has been created. So you can add now the rest of your slabs, etc. So you can quickly go to floor plan. You can click on the slabs. You can click on the drop down menu, select slab. Now you'll not be able to see this drawing when you go into slab sketcher mode. So you select discard. And what you need to do in this case is you first need to draw the 2D lines to serve as a reference. And then you can draw this, you can draw your slabs. So right now I'm just creating the patio slab here. I go to 3D and now you can see that the elevation is, this elevation of the slab needs to be changed. It needs to be brought down. So I just change the elevation to 0 here once you click on the slab, or I can change it to minus 300. And then I'll change the thickness of the slab to 300. So in this manner, you can create the slabs as well, and in floor plan also will show. Now to add doors and windows, there are many types of doors and windows that we can place. So we go ahead and create a door here. And we can change the model, the height, etc. Can just quickly type in the dimensions here. And for windows also, we can do the same thing. Can change the model here, and we can actually place a larger window here, or you can place a modular window. Now, in case of a modular window, I'll just be putting this as a single casement. And when I select this, the advantage is that we have more flexibility with this kind of window. We can even change it to a partition. So I'm changing this to 1200. And I'm changing the overall, the sill level here to 0 and the height to 2700. And when I click here, you can switch off, you can go to window pane option here. There are many parts of the modular window. So we just go to the pane level, and then in mullion properties, we can reduce the number of rows to 1. So now we have a partition like this. In this manner, we can copy paste the windows everywhere, windows and doors, etc. So to do that, we click on this window, we select copy array. We just paste it here. We can change the height, etc. And then, of course, we can place columns as well. So we select this, we click on columns, and then you can place a column here as well. And to change this column dimension, you can simply select this column, click on edit profile. And then you can shift this edge. When you select apply, then you can go to floor plan, and you can see that this column is now taking the shape of the column in the reference. So you can use this and copy paste it everywhere. So you can select here, go to architecture, click on copy, etc. And then you can create this. Similarly, you can do that with the balcony as well. So this is how you can add different types of doors, windows, partitions, etc. So this is the outer shell, and you can also this is the garage door. You can go to floor plan and you can put in a different kind of door here. I'll just select door and I'll click on change model, and then I'll select open shutter here, and then just change the width of this particular item. So now you can see that an open door has also been placed in here. So basically by doing all these, so you'll be then given can be able to reach this particular option, this particular stage here. So now the entire ground floor has been complete. And now what the next thing is to do is we need to add a different level. So you saw in the reference that there is an upper level which we can play around with the heights for. So how we do that is we have the ground floor right now. Now to add another floor, we need to select add floor. And we can either copy the specific floor or we can choose a blank floor. Now we click on new blank floor. And now you can see a new floor called floor one has been created. So when you go to floor plan, you can see that nothing is there. We have no reference on which to create this. So how we can do that, we can make sure we have a reference of the ground floor by going to floor settings here, clicking on floor outlines, and we choose the ground floor as the outline reference. And also we want the image of those plans imported here. So once again, we can add a tracing background. We go to upload / change image and we can upload this again. Once again, we can scale this. And now we need to move this first floor to this particular part. So how we do that is we have this option called move background image. We need to shift it towards the left. So by using the measuring tool, when we check over here, I will just measure the distance I need to shift it by, which in this case is 13,800. So we go to tracing background, we go to background image, and we type right shift by minus 13,800. So now the first floor has been shifted here. So now we can proceed with drawing the walls of the first floor. And we can even set the limits, the floor level limits of this particular floor now by going to floor settings, scrolling up. And as you can see, the bottom is now starting from 3,000 above the ground level. And the top limit is 6,000. We can even play with the heights and change it to something like 8,000. Then you can select the walls again. And let's say I'm going with 300 again for the thickness. And this time I want the height of some of the walls to be, let's say 4,700. So I'll simply be drawing those. We just use the outlines below as a reference on which we can now draw our new walls. And now if you want these two walls to meet, we can use trim extend by clicking on trim extend to corner. And then you can select this first wall and then select the wall that's going to meet it. So now we are going to see that the first floor has been created for this as well. And once again, we can go to tracing background, click on show on top and reduce the opacity here. And now you'll be able to see that this has been created as well. And now if you want, you can add these balconies as well by first drawing the outlines. So I'll just be drawing this side, and then we can add the slabs here as well, because these slabs are acting individually. So I'll just add the slabs one by one. You can use the rectangle tool. Select apply and do the same for the other as well. And you can use trim extend here as well. You can click on this first line and then you can click on the other one so that we can create a closed loop for the slab. We select apply. Now when we go to 3D, you can see the first floor only, all the elements that I've created for the first floor only. So we can shift select these two and we can change the elevation for this as well. Elevation will make this 0 because it's starting from the bottom level of the first floor. You may notice that you won't be able to see the ground floor and the first floor at the same time because we are on the floor level here. In order to see that, first I will just set the level here, minus 300 for each, and then I'll make the thickness of the slab also 300. I will do the same for this as well. So now when we go to ground floor, you'll be seeing this. And now when you go to first floor, you'll be seeing whatever's been created here. Now to see both of them at the same time, you need to go to the building level here. And then you will be seeing the consolidated floors together. So now you will be seeing what corrections you need to make, etc. So you can see that here, these walls are too high. They need to be lower. So you can select all these walls, or rather we can go to ground floor itself. We can shift select all this, and in the left hand panel select the wall drop down menu and set the height to be, instead of 3000, 2700, and you can press enter. Now when we go to building 1, you can see that the height has been fixed here. So let's take the example of, suppose I want to copy some doors and windows upwards. So simply select this particular window, press Ctrl Shift C. You have to go to ground floor for that. If you want to copy an element to the upper level, select the element first, press Ctrl Shift C, and then Ctrl Shift V. Then they'll ask you which floor you want to paste it to. You can select floor 1, and then you can select paste. So now in building 1, so I'll try it for this column instead. I do Ctrl Shift C and then Ctrl Shift V. Then I paste it. And now in floor 1, this column has been pasted here. And in building 1, you will be able to see these two columns. This column also, as well, you can change the overall height. So let's say this is 4700. I will change this column to be the same thing. You can even play around with some of the heights if you wish. So these heights, I can collectively shift select them, and I can change the walls in walls drop down menu. I can set it instead to 5700. And then we can go about setting the doors and windows for this as well. So this is basically now this substructure, the overall structure, the basic walls, windows, doors, etc., and even some columns that have been added to this structure. So by adding all the necessary details here, so you will be reaching a stage where you'll now have to add in the materials. You'll be adding wall finishes and facade elements. So you can start with this structure. We can just set this to 3D, right? So as you can see here, that in this particular image, it's very different from the bare structure here. So what is missing here is we need to assign materials for this. We need to put in pergolas, and you can also see that there are some extrusions that have been made, some lures, etc. There are even some plants and objects, and I've even incorporated some jalis as well as some lures here. So we can start with the assigning the wall materials first. So to do that, you need to select the wall finish here. And in the left-hand panel, you can either select from the options that have already been used, or you can go to Fetch from Store, and you have a variety of wall textures that you can select from this catalog. We have wall textures, we have paints, we have a lot of other materials as well, such as veneer, even acrylic, RL finishes, etc. So in this case, we'll stick with wall textures, and we can take a look at the catalog. I'll be selecting brick wall for this particular case. You can assign this to multiple wall finishes at the same time. And I can just select these particular floor finishes, these particular walls sections. Always remember, when we are clicking on the wall to apply finish, to always select the surfaces. Then you go to wall sections drop down menu. There you will see the finish material. Here you can choose from the list of materials already used here, or you can select from Fetch from Store here, where you'll be presented with a carousel of materials. So you can apply this. Then it's not been applied to this side because we haven't selected this section. So we can do the same for this as well. In this manner, we can apply different materials for different parts of the house. So in this particular case, a lot of these walls are absolute white. So we can apply these kind of materials here as well. Go to material facade. And we can select all these walls. Go to wall sections. And we can choose these finishes as well. You can do the same for your columns. You can select the column, set it to wall default, and you can change your slab color too. And we can assign this a different color. So now that the bare materials have been added, so now we need to apply the other parts of the wall tilings, jalis, etc. as well. So there are many different ways in which we can do this. One second, I'll just admit there's someone waiting in the lobby. So we can add wall tilings and other facade elements using something called the wall tiling cutting tool. So to do so, I'll just show an example. So what we do in this case is we select this wall. We need to select the surface of the wall to which we're applying the wall tiling to. We go to wall tiling cutting tool in the left-hand panel. And we can select add shape to add the shape. And then we can use the line tools to create the outline of our tiling. Make sure that your tiling is a closed curve. You can do this using the trim extend tool by clicking on trim here, clicking on this line and selecting this line. And then you can go ahead and select apply. And now this shape is basically this particular shape which we need to extrude. So here we are assigning it a material such as this wooden material that we have here, bark burn, and we want to assign this a depth that is more than 20 mm. So let's say I assign something like 1000. And the front shift, basically, it means that since it's 0, it means it is touching the wall. If we want it a little away from the wall, then we assign it a positive value. And the type here, we have extrude, tiling, and cut. Extrude is something we use when we're just creating an extrusion. And a cut is something we use when you're creating a niche or a cavity. So we'll go with extrude for now. And to add another shape, you can once again select add. And you can use the same tools. Let's say we have to create a border now. So press escape and select offset here. And since we're creating an inner copy, we set the mode to copy here. And then we click here and then we select apply. Now what happens here is that now that I have these two shapes, if I go back to designing here, you can see that this has been added now, but the border shape has not been added. It's because the front shift is 0. So it is over here. To shift it in front, we need to select this wall tiling, go back to tiling and cutting, and then select this particular shape. You'll see its properties in the left side, and ensure that the front shift is 1000 because 1000 was the thickness of the wooden part. Then I go back and now you can see that this has been added. You can assign your own material to this the same way I've assigned it to this brown part. So this is a simple extrusion you can use using wall tiling and cutting. Now we can create the same lures that you saw here. I can demonstrate it here. So this is something we can do called arraying. So now the front shift will be used heavily here because we're going to be shifting the lures far away from this wall. So I select this wall. I click on tiling and cutting again. Now again, you'll be seeing the profile of this wall. So let's say I want to add just one lure. I select add. I create this rectangle here. I'll make a very thin one and then I will select apply. Now this is acting as one louver. I'll make it a depth of 20 and I will extrude it. I'll treat this as an extrusion. And the front shift, I will shift it a certain distance in front of the wall, let's say 1000. Now, when I go back to designing, you can see that this lower has been placed in. But how do we create multiple copies of these lowers? To do so, select this lower again, click on tiling and cutting tool. And after assigning a material first, we then copy it. We select this and we select copy in the toolbar. Now to array it, we click on this mode, drop down menu, we select fixed distance. So let's say we have a center to center distance in mind. Let's say here it is going to be 1000 distance between each lower. So now when I click on this base point of the lower and I move my mouse in any direction, the lower previews are being formed. To reduce this, before I click anywhere, you can always type in a smaller value. Let's say 500. I'll make this 200 in this case and press enter. So now multiple louvers are being formed. So I can just click anywhere that I want these louvers to stop and I can go back to designing and now I can see these louvers are forming. If something like this is happening, I can once again go to tiling and cutting tool and shift it further in front. You can window select this, go to tiling and cutting, and you can set the front shift to something more. Then when I go back, you can see that these lowers have been added. As of now, these lowers I've made them too tall, but to delete any, to edit any of this, you can go to tiling and cutting tool and you can select edit shape. And then you can click on this edge and you can shift it downwards by 300, around 300, let's say, because it was going past the slab. I select apply. Then I go back. Now this has been shifted downwards. Now, in order to create those circular cuts, this is something now, this is the part where we use the cut tool. We select here, we go to tiling and cutting tool, and we select add once again. Because now we'll be assigning a different type of cut, a different type of tiling, which is called a cut. So we select add, we click on circle, and then we just create, let's say we want a circular cutting through the lowers. We select apply. Now I don't want this. Normally the cut would go inside the wall at the back. We don't want that. We want it to cut through the lowers. So we shift it towards the front by 1600 because that's where the lowers are. And the depth we will assign it something like 40. So that will cut well and through the louvers. Then lastly, we set the type to cut. If I just set it to extrude, what happens is when you go back, you'll just be seeing a circle like this. However, if I go back and I set this type to cut, now you can see when you go back, I'll just shift it further in front. I'll make this 1700. And I'll make this to be 100, let's say, or 300. So now you can see this cut has been created. So when you're creating a cut, always ensure that the circle is in front, a little bit in front of the lowers, and the cut depth is equal to the wall behind it. Otherwise, you will be seeing a circle at the back as well. So this is how you can create cuts and tilings, louvers, etc., all within the same wall. It'll all be associated with this wall, and you can edit it at any time by clicking on this and going to tiling cutting tool. Another thing you can do is create jalis. So right now you can see that this jali has been created and it is actually associated with this wall. How we can create a jali like that is that when we go to back to this design and we select this wall. Now let's say I'm clicking on tiling and cutting tool here. So we have this particular wall here and we want the tiling and cutting to be here this time. So for that, we check in the floor plan what is the depth that, like how far away from the wall we want it. So I go to floor 1 and I use a measuring tool and I find out that this 2160 is the distance that we want. So I go back to 3D. I select this wall. I go to tiling and cutting. And now I select add. I just draw a reference line that is 2160. And then I just create some rectangles. So since this will be like an interlocking rectangle jali, what I'll be doing is I'll be creating one set which is thinner and the set below which will be a bit thicker, just to create a sort of interesting perforation with the jali, some variation of thicknesses. You can drag these edges to meet the level. You can do the same here as well. Then just delete this line and select apply. Now what happens is that when I go back to designing, the jali is happening here, but I want it to be shifted at the back. So how we do this is that in floor plan, I just check the shift I want, 3600, around 3600. I go to 3D and I click on this, go to tiling cutting tool, and I choose a front shift this time to be minus 3630. And the depth, the thickness of these extrusions, you can set it to be anything. So let's say these are brick jalis. I'm just going to type in 100 and I can assign this any material that I want. So now when we go back, we can see that it has been shifted back in this manner. Now in the same way, we can do the next layer as well. Simply select add once again because we'll be adding a different type of property to this new set. Select apply and apply the same properties that you have done over here. So I just select this and I type in 3630 minus 3630. And I'll change the depth now to be 400. If I want this to shift a little bit forward, like ahead of this, then I'll change the color here. I'll double check first whether this is what I want. So now you can see that two different types of levels are happening because I've made two different sets. So all we need to do now is array this. So I go to tiling cutting and then I'll just use the measuring tool to find out what is the distance I want, 506. I'll discard this and then I will select these two, select copy, fixed distance, and I'll type in 506. Now when I select this part, you can see the jali is forming on its own. I just click on the endpoint and going back, I can see that I have created a jali simply by using the wall tiling and cutting tool. In this manner, you can even create louvers on this side as you saw over here using the same kind of technique as you saw me apply over here. In this case, you can see that when I've selected these louvers, I have made it using this wall as a reference. So when I click on this one, click on tiling cutting tool, I've made the louvers here. So in this manner, you can actually use tiling and cutting tool here also, or you can use columns. Now to create a pergola, you can create a pergola using beams. So for that, we'll be creating another floor level. We'll be selecting, I've already created floor 2. And when I go to floor plan, I can just check the levels here. This is starting from 9,000. I'll just make this 8,000 instead. And I can actually check the first floor layout by clicking on floor outline and selecting floor 1. So now you can see where you can create the slab. So I'll just create a simple slab here by selecting slab. I just create this particular line. You can use trim extend also to make sure that this is closed, and I'll just make an offset here. I'll just set this to copy and then I'll type in a value, 400, let's say, and select apply. So now when I go to building 1 and I go to 3D, you can see that the slab is a bit high. So I can select this and make the elevation here 0 or minus 300. And I can assign a material to this. And to create those pergola lines, you can actually use the beam method for this. By that, what I mean is when I go to floor plan once again, let's say I go to floor 1, I go to floor plan here, and here in this view, I switch on I go to floor 2 instead. And then you can add your beams here. How we do that is we select this drop down menu, select beam, and simply place a beam here. And you can assign this any material that you want, and you can assign it a certain depth and width as well. So I'm making this 20, or I'll make it 50. And just ensure that it's at the proper level. So here as well, I will just make the elevation 0 or minus 300. So now it is falling in line with this pergola slab. And you can assign this any material that you want once again. Once that is done, you can array this the same way that I've done with the other elements. To do that, I click on this beam, click on architecture, select copy, multiply the fixed distance, and set any interdistance that you want. Then simply move your mouse in the direction you want. And once done, you can click somewhere here. And then to make the pergolas here as well, simply take this beam, copy it, and rotate it. Then this beam you can drag. You can drag this beam. Made at any point here. And of course, you can array this in the same manner. So now we get a pergola slab like this. When you go to the entire building, you'll be seeing this particular design. So we have these, and we need to add railings as well. We have plants that we can add. This has been created using a slab. When I go to edit shape, this has been created using the shape and the offset tool. So we can add uses to add plants now. We can add a few vehicles inside, and we can add a railing. Now to add a railing, let's just say I am going to add another slab here. I'll just increase the thickness of the slab. We go to floor plan mode, ensure that we're on the correct flow. And to access the railing, we need to go to the architecture app, select railing to add an independent railing. And now we need to define the path of this railing. So I will just be drawing these two lines, and I will be selecting apply. And now in 3D, you can edit these railings in any way that you want. You can click on this railing, let's say, and you can click on repeaters to change the model type. The type of repeater being used here is repeater 1. So I'll select change model. And then you can add these kind of balusters, etc. Now to add plants, we have plant categories available on Infurnia. So we select furnish, select plants here. So we have variety of plant types here. Let's say I'm going for a shrub. I just select the shrub. We can add one here. And I don't want it to be this large. So I can select the shrub, ensure that I'm maintaining aspect ratio, and then I can change the one of the dimensions. So now it has been reduced to this. So in this manner, I can again go to architecture. We can copy different plans. We can select fixed copy this time if we have a certain number of copies in mind. And I'm going to select something like 3 copies. Now you can see that 3 copies at varying distances are being formed. And you can change the size of each one for some variety. This I can just change the overall width to 700. It's increasing proportionally because I've selected maintain aspect ratio. If I uncheck that, then it'll be different. So then you can just copy these. So the shortcut I'm using here is CP. When I click on this plant and I type CP, you'll be automatically getting copy and array. You don't have to type it anywhere. You can just type it anywhere at random, like you would with AutoCAD shortcuts. So now these plants have been added. Now we have vehicles as well. Can go to building 1. And now we can actually go to furnish once again, go to insert. So we can't add this at building level. You will need to select this at the ground floor level. And then we can click on furnish. Scroll down, you will see vehicle here. And you can add 1 or 2 cars in this garage. Click on the cars once again, and you can add a different car this time. So now in building 1, the facade would be more or less complete. You can create the rest of the slab using the slab tool in the second floor at level 2 in the same manner in which I have done this. Also throughout throughout designing, you can change the units at any time simply by typing UN, clicking here, and in the left hand panel, you can change this to feet inch versus millimeter. You can also access this by clicking on view, and you can select project units, and you will be getting these two options here. So by making these various changes, you would be arriving at a more or less complete house. I will just select refresh, and we'll be at least getting the exterior facade, the front facade of this overall house. Now, what is remaining to be added is landscaping. The house may be complete, but we need a sort of backdrop against which to set it. So now whenever we're creating outdoor elements like landscaping, basically anything that is not related to the building, it is always better to go to the world mode to do it. I think in your first introduction with Infurnia, you might have been told about the different levels at which you can add, like building one, floor one, etc. So world one is basically the site level. This is what we'll be using to add external landscape materials, so that as we go down to building level, floor level, etc., these extra elements will not be in our way while designing, and it will not slow down the software, which is why preferably we ensure that we are in the world mode here before putting the landscaping elements. So we can start with putting some pavement, road, etc. that we are seeing over here. So once again, we go to floor plan mode. And this time we can create some slabs. Once again, I select slab here. I use a rectangle tool. And to create curves, you can select fillet option here and select the two sides. Here you can type in the fillet radius, the reduction amount. You can click on submit. You can do the same with all your other corners as well. This will help you create a more realistic curve. So we have fillet and we have chamfer as well. In this case, we'll be using fillet, the fillet tool. Once we select apply, when we go to 3D, we can of course change the material, the elevation of the slab. We want this is way too high, so we type in 0. And we make this 300 high, 300 thick. So of course now we can copy this paving at different parts. We can first assign this a material. We can select something like ash brick. And then we can go to floor plan and we can select this and type in CP. And you can specify the distance at which you want to copy this. So we have these slabs here. Now we need to create the road. So that will be, we can create another slab in this way. So this slab will be covering the overall part. Apply this. Once again, set the elevation to 0. And maybe set this a little lower, let's say 150, 100. And in fact, now when we go to the material here, we can go to fetch from store and we can go to floor tiles. We have a material called asphalt already. We can just type in, go to floor tiles, vitrified. So we have asphalt here in under floor tiles. We select this and now we have created a road kind of a surface. So this is just for setting this particular view. Now you can also see that we have to add some like a boundary wall, some external buildings, some trees, etc. So we can do all this by accessing the plant section, the plant category in our furnishing. We can create the building, just the overall block form of the building in the same manner in which we created these walls. And of course, the bushes, trees, etc. And these brick holders for the trees are made using slab tools. So we can just quickly make those. So I'll just show one example. I go to slab once more, select rectangle, offset, select copy, offset, apply, set the elevation to be 300 this time, and set the thickness to be a bit more than that, and assign it any material of our choice. And of course, we can add a tree as well. Can go to furnish, plant, we have trees here. Then you can drag this tree and change its height. Now to create a compound wall for this, you can go to floor plan. So currently all the slabs are obstructing our way, so we can just go to layer sets and switch off all the slabs. Now it'll be easier for us to see where we are creating the wall. Going to floor plan, we can create a boundary wall. We can preset the height here. Go back to 3D. Our compound wall has been created. And in the same manner in which we have done for the others, we can, of course, assign materials for this as well. Go to wall section, select here, and we can use the wall tiling and cutting tool for this particular purpose as well. I'll switch the slabs back on. Change the height of this wall. And then let's say I'm just creating the surface for this. You can see this glass material has been added. So we can go to landscaping here, select this side, go to tiling and cutting tool, and we'll just quickly make the cuts first. Select apply, make the type to cut, change the depth to 300, 400 in fact, and then add another rectangle which will be acting as a glass. Now this we can select this particular item and we can click on fetch from store, set this to glass. You can choose black glass here. Going back to design, now this has been created. And to add an opening like a gate here in floor plan, if I once again switch off all the slabs here, I can see exactly where to put the gate. I select door, simply put a normal door in the boundary wall, and in the left-hand panel, change the model to gate. So in this manner, you can actually change the dimensions and make a gate for this particular boundary wall. If you don't like this particular gate, you can change the model again. And even in there, the materials, you can change certain materials of this gate to some other material of your choice. You can do the same for the other side as well. Now, when you switch on the slabs, you'll be getting this particular kind of landscaping. You can copy these trees in different places as well, so that you'll be getting the overall landscaping thing here. Now, the final thing that needs to be added, in fact, is the sky. And what we also need to consider are the daylighting properties, the external light properties that we need in order to make renders out of this. So there are two ways in which we can do external rendering. So when we go to the render option here, we have something called exterior light settings. So normally we have environmental maps already ready and set for us, such as sky. You'll be able to see the previews of the panoramic views, what each background would look like against this particular building. So for example, I've actually done a render of using a preset map. The disadvantages of this is that, however, is that for these preset maps, you will be getting in the render that the shadow of this house is falling in two different directions, which means basically that the light has not been set properly. The timing is not considered in these presets. So it doesn't know which way the sun should be falling from. So what we can do to combat this is we put in our own particular sky map. To do this, we go to exterior lighting and we set this to none. And what we'll be doing instead is we'll be creating a wall behind this and assigning a completely different sky material of our own, which means we'll have flexibility over the sky. And not only that, we will also be able to set the sunlight direction from any angle that we want, because this setting does not really work in any of these preset maps. So when I go to the admin portal here, I have already added to the catalog two different types of skies, so we can add any of those. Having said that, once that is done, we can go to landscaping, we can go to this design, and we can go to floor plan. And then we simply draw a wall. We need to ensure that this wall is going to cover the entirety of the background so that it looks like a real sky. This height, we can change it to, this background wall, we can change it to something much higher, and we can even change the length of this. So this we can stretch. And once there, all you need to do now is assign your own particular background. When you select this particular wall, simply click on the fetch from store icon. go to the wall text or any category in which you have placed your sky. You can type in the name of that texture and you can place it here. So this is what you'll be getting. You can extend this wall and you can extend the slab however you want. Now there's another thing to consider. So now that we've set the sky view, when we go to floor plan, we now need to still set the timing. We need to set the timing and we need to set the north face so that we know which way the sun is falling. The sun rays are falling. So first we set the compass. We go to annotate and we click on compass here. And then we just click anywhere to set the compass. So currently the direction is southwest. Now let's say I want the sun rays to fall in this direction and it's morning. So I click on this compass here and I just change it to, let's say, 0. You can type in the angle here, the rotation angle in the left-hand panel, so that the compass points in the direction you want. You can type in 90 if you want east, or 45 if you want northeast. And then in 3D, now you can see that the sky is suddenly darkened. Reason for that is if you go to render and click on exterior light, you can see that in sunlight, the time is 7 o'clock. So you can adjust the timing here as well. We can make it during the afternoon. So now you can see that the shadows are actually changing here. And similarly, you can extend the wall, etc. And you can even extend the slab. Intensity. So when I go to render once again, exterior light. So we have set the time. We have set the intensity also. So currently for daylight, any intensity ranging from 30 to 40 is fine. So let's say I type in 30. This will be slightly darker. So I can just keep it at 35 for now. So when I go to this final model here, in the floor plan, you can see that the compass is actually being set in a southwest direction. So what happens is when I go to, if I rotate it in the other way, then I'll have to change the timings from afternoon to morning. So I'm typing minus 135. Now it's become dark. So we can set the timing here to be morning. And then we can actually go ahead with changing the rest of the timings as well. So now the timing has been set. We can set the light intensity to 40. So now basically the lighting settings have been put in for exterior. And you can see that in the final model as well, the compass direction is the same. And when we go to 3D, exterior light, you can see that the preset map has been set to none. And the time has been set to any time in the morning. And I've kept the intensity at 30 for now. Now, all that's remaining to do here is we need to ensure that the materials are set properly, that the surfaces are not too glossy. Let's say this particular paving, I don't want this to be glossy. So I click on materials here in global preferences settings. I select the pick tool and I click on this material. So now it's saying that the specular is 0 and the roughness is at its full capacity. So I can, so this is fine. I can apply this to all instances. Now, to avoid your sky reflecting any light, you need to ensure that the same properties have been applied to your sky. You don't want any sunlight to reflect, bounce off the sky wall. So make sure that the glossiness of the specular is set to 0 and the roughness is set to 1. You can apply this to all the instances. And also, if you want, you can add some like some internal lights here as well. So what I've done is I've placed some lights. If I switch on the lights option here, this lights layers, I've set some light under each part with an intensity of 10. So keeping the default light is okay. If you change the intensity to 10, this will make sure that there is absolutely no glare. So I've placed this at various parts to make sure that the niches inside this design are not too darkened. So similarly, in this case, I can add lights here as well. And lastly, what we need to do is set the view. There are two ways in which we can set a view. You can orbit around your panel. You can orbit around your workspace in order to set an ideal view, or in floor plan, you can go and you can click on this camera option at the bottom right. And you can actually drag this camera. You can see that this camera is here. You can drag it backwards to get a better view. And you can rotate it as well. You can see the thumbnail of this view happening here. So you can drag it depending on where you want the camera to be and where you want your position to be. And over here, you can change the height. Let's say I'm typing in 2000. And make sure your angle is set to 0 here so that all the walls will appear straight. Once you're satisfied with your view, in this view panel in the bottom left, the same way you can add a scene in SketchUp, you can click on this plus symbol here. This is called view 1. Then you can lock your camera to save this view. So when you click on free view, you can orbit in any way that you want. But when you go to view 1, you'll be returned to this particular view. And now all you need to do is render your view. You can select render here and you can click on render option here. So this is the thumbnail here. So you can set the aspect ratio to 4:3, or you can set it to 1:1 also. I'll keep it at 16:9 for now. We also have the advantage of a render preview, which means if I select here, you just need to wait for 10 to 20 seconds for a grainy texture, a grainy kind of image to happen, so that you will now see where it is too light and where it is too dark, etc. So now you can see that in this case, it's a bit dark in these niches and inside this corner as well. So what we can remedy this situation by placing lights in these particular areas. So when we go to architecture, I'll go to building 1, and then you can add your lights. You can go to floor plan. Whenever you want to remove this camera, just click on this camera option once again here. And then you can set your lights. So in this case, I want this garage to have some light in it. So I select insert light, ceiling light, ensure that the light layer is switched on so that I can see the light that I'm copying. If you switch off the light layer, you will not be seeing that in the render as well. I can copy and array these. First, I'll just go to the lights option here and ensure that the intensity is 10. And in 3D as well, I can set the elevation by going up on the left-hand side and typing in, experimenting with the elevation here. Now, once the elevation is set, you can go ahead and copy these everywhere, because later you will not be able to change the elevation for all the lights. You'll be able to only change the intensity for all the lights. So always make sure the elevation is set properly before you proceed with the rest. So you can copy these lights like this. And you can array it here as well. Once again, I'll select copy. And to copy all these 4 lights at the same time, I will just type in 3 copies once again. I'll be creating 3 additional rows of these lights, all of which are going to be multiply straight fixed copy, not curved. Then I just ensure that it is going straight. You can delete extra lights by simply window selecting this and deleting them. And similarly, you can do this at the first floor level as well. For your balcony lights, you can place balcony lights here, set it to 10, and you can place some lights here as well, like I have done so for this. So now here I have already saved a view in this case. And when I select any light, you can see that I've set the position here and the light intensity is 10. So yeah, it's up to you whether you want to incorporate internal lights in here to illuminate the internal spaces as well, or you can leave it as is. Once you're done, you can just select your view here, click on render, select render here. You can check the render preview to see the basic lighting issues without using any of your credits. And once you're confident with running a low quality render, you can select HD render. When you're absolutely confident with your with your render settings like lighting, etc., and you want to show it to a client, then you can click on either FHD or 4K render is the best quality. So you can click on HD render now. So this will take an estimated amount of 3 minutes. And when I go to gallery, I've already created some renders of the same at different settings. So this particular one is at 30. The light intensity I've kept for this is 30. This one's 35. This one is 30. And once these renders have been run, you can actually see that in the hamburger button against these particular images, you have the option of post-processing these images as well. So here you can change things like the contrast. You can play with the contrast, the saturation, etc. These are options for temperature as well, but this is optional for you. Sharpness, when you click on sharpness, you'll be getting a posterized image like this. So I wouldn't recommend using it. And of course, there's brightness, which will change the exposure of the entire image. To reset all of these changes, you can click on reset. And you'll be able to download this image only once you have set all of these. So you can click on download after you're done. This is one such image that has been created using post-processing. So now I've just been notified that a render has been created. So I go to gallery, I go to HD. And since now these are the ones where I've placed in lights, so the exterior lighting settings have taken a different turn because I've placed lights inside. This is the one without any lights inside. So this is how you can run renders at different settings. So for daytime renders, always make sure that your exterior light settings are kept to 30 to 40. And for night renders, keep it at around 10 to 15. So these are about renders. So lastly, you can produce different outputs also out of this to create different elevations, etc. So to make an elevation drawing, you can just go to your floor plan and you can select elevation here. Click on add elevation view. Like I've already added an elevation view here, so you can set it in this manner. So let's say I've created elevation 4 here. You can change the extents of this. I want the elevation to extend from these two sides. The house is in the middle. And I need to change the depth as well. I want items even at the back to be seen. Otherwise, it'll disappear. So now when I go to elevation 4, you can see only a small part of this is there. So that means I need to change the height as well. When I change the height, like let's say 11,000, you can see the overall elevation is here. The start point of the elevation you can determine here to 0. And of course, once you do that, you can go to annotate and you can create elevation drawings by selecting X, Y. And then you can just click on any of the points that you want to dimension and create elevation drawings in this manner. And once done, you can actually move this to your presentation. You can go to home, select add this view to presentation, click on add to a new page. You can select from these two or you can choose from a catalog. Let's say I'm just choosing this presentation. Then to access your presentation, you go to this presentation here. And now you can see, you can drag these border extents to resize this image, and you can use the non-diagonal extents to crop your image. So this is how you can actually add elevations to your drawings. And to set an exact scale to this, in the left-hand panel, you can see current image scale is presentation, is to design. So it's 1:28. You can set this to, let's say, 1:25. And now this drawing is actually in the scale of 1:25. Similarly, when you go back to your design and go back to your elevation, always ensure that you're at the correct level. If you select building 1, for example, now all the landscape elements are gone because we are at the building level. And if we select ground floor, we're at the ground floor level. So always make sure you're at the correct level depending on the details that you want to showcase. So basically, this is how you can generate different outputs out of your house render. And once you master putting different facade elements, etc., objects and lighting, you can even use these skills to build on the other sides of your house as well. So that actually brings us to the end of the overall outlining of how we can design an entire facade exterior, etc. So the overall outline has been described. So if anyone has any doubts or questions or anything that they want to bring up or something that we missed out during this presentation, the floor is open for questions.
Hello, madam.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Hi,
Can
good
you
evening.
can you show me? My name is Venukumar. Can you show me where is the north? I mean compass from uh, from from where which toolbar you are picked up? And the second thing uh, is it possible to fix like longitude and latitude? Suppose we are doing some project at in some other states, kind of something.
Okay.
So easily we can select something. I mean, the present location and all. So that is easier, right?
I
Is it
understand,
possible?
yes. So in terms of setting latitude and longitude, it's not that feature is not exactly available. But since the objective of setting these locations is simply to get that right amount of sunlight. So as your first question was how to find the compass, right? So I'll just tell you in flow plan, we need to go to annotate and set this to and select add compass. Once you do so, you can set this compass anywhere. You can by clicking on the screen, and you can even change the size of this compass that you'll be able to see it. And also you can play with the rotation here so that you'll be able to determine the sunlight direction. Now, for example, so no, we don't have. I'm afraid we don't have like an auto location determined sunlight settings, etc. So we don't exactly have that. So there is an upside to this, however. That means we can set our own direction of sunlight. So depending on the spaces that we want illuminated, we can set the timing as well as the compass direction so that we know from where the sun rays are falling. So we at least have the flexibility over the background as well as the sunlight settings. So does that answer your question?
Okay. Thank you, madam.
All right. Any other questions?
Madam, you are selected slab height in the 300 mm. Generally, it would be in a 150, right? Maximum is why you selected 300 mm while you are explaining about the thickness of the slab.
Got it. So in this case, Infurnia's default floor base height is 300 because usually for conceptual models, we also account for the other surfaces as well. You can absolutely change the thickness of the slab to 150 as well. So if I select the slab, you can change this to 150. But simply in order to make it match with the automatically created floor base when I'm making the walls and floors, I thought I'd make it 300 to match the rest. But definitely. So this is just created to accommodate for any extra height or whatever gaps or false ceiling surfaces that might be happening in this particular space so that I could make my walls accordingly. But definitely you can add those kind of false ceilings separately to even a 150 slab.
Thank you, madam.
All right. Is there anything somebody would like to know about any of the
Once,
facade?
excuse me, madam. If we
Yes.
can, I mean, once you purchase, How many, I mean, we can use in a laptop and even tab as well, a desktop, right?
This Infurnia software. So
Yes, madam.
in making editing like editing the design is currently not really possible in tab, so you will need a system that can be a laptop, and the compatibility is you can choose elect for a PC or a Mac. That is perfectly fine. But in devices such as tabs or phones, you will only be able to view the design as well as maybe view its renders, walkthroughs, etc., but not make any changes like creating a wall or building up the design, etc.
Okay, madam. Okay, madam.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much, MPA. I'm really glad that you found this session useful. So this was actually our first building design webinar. So the architecture segment has been launched quite recently in October, in fact. So still a lot of experimentation is going, a lot of features are still underway, but it has come a long way since then, and I am glad that this has been of some help for you. Is there anything else that you would like to know about creating this facade?
Madam, this Infonia is, I mean, working drawings is possible, madam.
Yes, yes, working drawings are absolutely possible. So the reason I hadn't showcased the floor plan that much in terms of grid lines, etc., is I just created the outer shell. But yes, absolutely, it is possible. So I think the main components of a working drawing would be, I'll just go to the ground floor. Let's take that for example. Would be the brick hatch elevate, like the plan the wall hatching and columns, beams, etc., and not to mention the grid lines and dimensions. So how to create working drawings? So we can start by first we can assign a sort of hatch to this. So to create a hatch for these walls, you can simply go to materials and select composites here. I want to create a copy which of the wall which is 300 mm thick with hatch. I clone this particular wall. I just rename it to 300, and I change the thickness in this column to 300. Now the most important part is applying the hatch. So we have something called 2D hatching, and we go to material and hatching option here and select the first square, and we choose this particular hatch. You can even change the fill color, which is white right now, and the stroke color, which is red or black, any color that you want. So now, and scale you can change later as well. You can select apply, so you'll be getting preview here. Select apply. Now what happens is, to assign this material to the wall, you can Windows select all of this, go to wall thickness slash composites. You can select composite here, and now we have this new layer that has been placed in here. So that is, so once I do that, you can see that I'll just switch off this drawing. I'll go to floor outlines, and I'll just, sorry, not floor outlines, tracing background, and I'll just reduce the opacity to, I'll just untick this. So now you can see that this hatch has been applied. You can even change the scale of this hatch if you want later on. Now to create your working drawings. So we have grid lines. So we go to draw tab here, and in fact, we select grid line, add grid line, and you can simply start from your desired point and then make one over here as well. So when you click on this grid line, you can see that a small bubble has appeared on this side. You can change this radius by, in the left hand panel, I'll just type in 1000. That's too much. I'll just type in 500. And of course, you can label this here and label, just type in something like A. And in the same manner, you can type CP and you can click on copy array. And you can just keep copying this at various points. You can do the same thing across the transverse side as well. And of course, there are the dimensions. The matter of dimensions is go to annotate. Now, the advantage here is that you can, in fact, do auto dimensioning in the floor plan. So click on align, click on add auto dimensioning, and you'll be getting these predetermined dimensions already. Now to add, of course, your grid line dimensions, you can click on XY and you can select from one column to the other. Okay, so in this case, it's actually just selecting from one object to the other. So yes, this is something that we need some improvement. In an ideal scenario, the dimensioning between grid lines should also be available on Infurnia because it's a very essential part of architectural drawings. So yes, thank you for bringing that up. This is something you can take up, but as of now, you can add dimensions both manually as well as automatically. And of course, the same way in which I've put an elevation into the presentation mode, you can in fact go to the home tab, select add view to presentation, click on add to a new page. Let's say I'm going to choose a blank page now, go to presentation. And now this drawing has been placed in here. So I just change the extents in this manner. And I want to increase the scale. I'll choose 150, 1:150. So now here is your plan. You can always change these walls much later on as well. And once you're done, you can actually publish this presentation as a PDF file. When you click on PDF in this toolbar, you have the option of selecting print all the sheets together, or you can print the current sheet that you're on. So you can select either of this. And this is how you can create different drawings as well. Even the format that I've created here, this is done completely on Infurnia as well. So when you click on add sheet to make a blank page, you can click on this draw tool here, and you can in fact set margins, etc. for this page. So let's say I click on settings here, and you can determine in sheet margins here, you can type in 20 for all. This is just an example. So you can set it this manner. You can select draw, click on rectangle. And then you can create your format in this manner. And of course, you can drag this later and use different lines to create and text as well. So you can add text here. And you can double click on this text and add in your label. Once you type in your text, press the tick, click on the tick mark, and that change will be saved and your text label will be applied here. So yes, it's absolutely possible to put your grid lines dimension and assign different materials, etc. to make good for construction drawings. You can even use the draw tool, in fact, to create electrical drawings. When we have these lightings, you can select draw tool, the draw tab, and you can use the arc tool. Set all these colors on self. Let's say I want dashed line to represent circuit wiring. I just set the color to red. And you can click on this wiring, and then you can create your circuit wiring in this manner. So we have light fixtures, we have electrical, we have draw lines to signify wiring, and in the same, using the same logic, we can even create plumbing drawings. So that's the scope of what we can achieve with this. Is there anything else? Does that answer your question? So regarding working drawings, is your doubt clear? All right. So if there's anything else anyone would like to bring up, any doubts or questions or
Last doubt.
yes.
Uh, like in a Revit, we can do some, sections. Is it possible with this?
Sections in the sense the
I
hatching,
mean,
etc., right?
the building is to be cutting from some X direction or Y direction, and we can see the sectional elevations of that building.
Absolutely, it's possible. It depends on
Can
where you're
you,
placing
can you
your. Yes,
can you
go
show
on,
me?
please.
Thank you.
I'll just show it. So in floor plan, now let's say once again I go to the ground floor and I just want to place an elevation somewhere. I am going to click on elevation here and I'm placing an elevation view cutting across his garage, for example. So I'll place it here. Always ensure that in this case, to ensure that's cutting through walls, you need to make sure the section line is cutting through the correct walls. So that's one thing you should do. So it all depends on the location and the reach of your elevation. And of course, you can change your depth as well. Here, it's not as important to increase the reach. So I will just change it here so that you'll be able to see the elevation. And I can even bring this further back because I do want the cars to be visible. So once that is done, I can set the desired height. If I just want it up to the garage floor, I can change it to like just 3000 instead of increasing it. And it's called elevation 4. So I just select elevation 4. So it's, you can see it's cutting through the wall right now. And if I go to the building level, and in fact now the world level, now you can see these extra details have been added. Now I just click on this elevation and I can change the height as well to, let's say, 10,000. Now the entire section has been created. It's a bit, I've placed a walls a bit haphazardly, so it's not as clear as clean as I want it to be. But of course, you can assign your elevation hatch. So how to do that? Let's say these walls. We go to home, right? We ensure that we are in the correct floor first. We need to actually be in ground floor in order for the hatch to be visible. So make sure that you can keep your cars, etc. over here. So here, so you select hatch, and you define the outer boundary of a hatch. You can see I've kept it diagonal lines. I can even change it to something else. Let's say double diagonal lines to signify brick. I change this particular. I make this particular rectangle and I select apply. Now this hatch has been placed. I can change this even later when I click on the hatch and select left hand. In the left hand panel, I can change the colors, etc. And I can change the opacity of this. I can change the scale. If I type in 2, it'll be more widely spaced. And when I type in copy, I can click on the space point and I can just simply copy it over here. I can, of course, edit this shape and then drag this extends upwards and then select apply. Now, when I go to world level, you can see that this hatch has been applied. You can see it along with the other detailing as well. And of course, not to mention, you can add your dimensions here as well. So whenever you are placing hatch, Infurnia has this thing where you need to be at the ground level in order to access the hatch for anything. But no worries, because when you go back to the world level, you'll be able to see those hatches still. So you can do all this for even your slab. I want to extend this and I'll just select apply. And I want to change this hatch to gravel or something. This is something you can absolutely do. And when you once again, when you go back to your world level, you will be able to see this. So you can create sections like these. Hopefully, a lot cleaner than this. You will be able to do so with much more precision and care. You will be able to create the elevation drawings that you want. So does that answer your question? All right. So I think yes, so unless everybody else has any other doubts, so I just wanted to mention that next Thursday we will be delving a little deeper into the whole facade aspect of this building. So right now I barely touched upon this particular the types of facade we can actually achieve. Reason being that let me just unlock this camera. Yes, reason being that since we wanted to cover the overall building and not go too much in detail over this, we didn't really have much of an opportunity to, you know, um, cover all the types of facades that we can achieve. So actually, next week's webinar is going to be focused more on what kind of facade details we can create. Anything ranging from curtain walls to modern types of perforations that you see in office buildings to even traditional jalis and louvers, etc. So that webinar will be explaining that in much greater detail. So if you're interested, you can check it out. We'll be forwarding this next week in any case. So whoever wants to learn a little bit about that, wants to get a bit of any doubts regarding that, can get it cleared next week. You are most welcome to join. So with that being said, I think this session has been quite extended. So I think unless anyone has any doubts, we can end the session here. So I'd like to thank you all for coming here. So that would be about it.
I hope in the next Thursday, the same timing, 5 to 6 or any other time, madam.
It'll be 5 to 6 only. All our webinars are at that time.
Really great learning. Thank you for your, uh, teaching and even not even 5 to 6, it is extended to till 7. Really
Yes,
good patience. A great patience, and I hope. But it is a need to lot of. R&D need to happen compared to with Revit. I think because in a section we need to again we need to do hatching and all the thing. It consuming a lot of time. I feel.
definitely. Yes, this is all of this is under development. So as
Yeah,
we keep,
my opinion, I'm sharing that because you're upcoming and I mean you're doing something in this is a software is developed by Indian IIT people. Am I right?
yes, yes,
So my that's why I'm just giving my my feedback so that it would be helpful to you for further betterment to the society, as well as in the professionals like architects and interior designers, as well as mechanical MEP engineers, etc.
Absolutely. So, yes, India's moving slowly but steadily towards BIM modeling, and any little feedback for improvement will definitely help a lot. So,
That,
I think Revit is one of them, but I think India as a whole is using SketchUp, and BIM modeling will make it so much easier in the long run for construction, etc. So we will accept and we'll gladly welcome any kind of feedback that comes across to help us improve Infonia.
compared to BIM, something the Infonia, I mean, fee structure and all, commercials and all, very good economical to suit that's Indian uh, context and Indian people who I mean, economically poor. Even anyone can opt or utilize this opportunity to purchase your or type with your Infonia. But the thing is, need some of the updates according to my knowledge concern.
Definitely, yes. And we are working towards it every time. So,
All the best for your entire team.
all right.
A great future in the future to be like, I mean, like BIM level. I hope.
Yes, yes, we hope so too. Thank you so much.